Hello everyone, I'm B. Dukes from EP764. Today we're going to talk about instructional design models. We'll first cover an overview of ID, then we'll talk about three selected ID models. First, the ADDIE model. Second, backward learning. Third, the Agile model. And last, we'll talk about a newly proposed model. We'll compare and contrast some of the strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll stop at the references in case anyone has any questions. So what is instructional system design? There are many different definitions and various approaches on the explanation of instructional system design. I like what Brown and Green said, that ID, instructional design or instructional system design, is the practice of creating instructional experiences that make the acquisition of knowledge, that's learning, skills more efficient, learning that's more effective, and learning experiences that are more appealing. If you conduct any research at all, you'll find that there's a proliferation across the marketplace of different kinds of ID models. Regardless of the model, and regardless of the theory that the model might be associated with, models today generally look at three basic phases, and those phases are analysis of the training need, the design of the learning experience, and the development of that learning intervention. Common characteristics that you'll find in instructional system design, generally they're learner-centered, many of them have a phased approach, and they focus on the learner. Some of them may require only a few resources. Other models may require a complete team of experts, many different kinds of subject matter experts to design the learning experience. The four models that we'll talk about today, as I mentioned, are shown on the screen: the ADDIE, the backward learning, the Agile, and the new proposed model. The ADDIE model, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with, was developed back in the 70s, during the mid-70s, by the U.S. Army at the Center for Educational Technology at Florida State University. Generally speaking, the ADDIE model is focused on five factors, five step-by-step factors that ID professionals can use to tackle instructional design. Those factors or those phases, some people refer to them as phases, some as factors: analyze the need, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. As you can see from the screen, the ADDIE model is a very linear approach. Linear may be great in some instances because it provides a lot of organization. However, the linear approach is more of a waterfall approach. We recognize what we have when we get to the end of the phase. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes about other models that may offer some iterative work before we get to the end of that design of the learning experience. After the ADDIE model, I'd like to talk about the backward planning model. The backward planning design is very different than the ADDIE. It actually starts with the learning outcomes. What would you like your learners to be able to accomplish after the training intervention has occurred? The backward planning model is very fluid. It offers outcomes. You conduct your assessments. You design your learning intervention. It's very different from the ADDIE, and the fact that many designers are accustomed to using the ADDIE, some say it's difficult to switch from the ADDIE to a backward planning model. The bottom line is it's a careful consideration, particularly when you're dealing with adult learners or varied kinds of learners, because the backward planning model gives instructional designers an opportunity to consider the needs of the different kinds of learners that will be targeted for the learning intervention. It does not consider the learners as a one-size-fits-all per se. It also takes into account situational factors that might be external or internal to the learning environment, and also how those variables might impact the actual delivery modality. Now, we've talked about the ADDIE model, which is very straightforward, 5 direct phases, very linear approached. We've just talked about the backward planning design that begins with the end in mind. Now we're going to talk about the Agile instructional design model. The Agile model stands for align, get set, iterate and implement, leverage and evaluate. You may recognize the Agile instructional model as having familiarity with the development of software, with software design development and the Agile, Agile project management methodologies associated with software. This is exactly where this model came from, but it's been migrated and adapted to the learning environment. The goal is to create a landscape that's modern, that's adaptive, and that offers opportunity for instructional design with an agile approach. As you can see based on the visual shown on your screen, the instructional designer that's working using the agile methodology for instructional design will create, then they get feedback. There's a complete feedback loop here, and then they go to the next phase. There's another feedback loop, and eventually you're ready to release the new training. The key here is that this can be very fluid. This can be it is agile. It can be very flexible, and it offers an opportunity for considerable feedback at each phase of the instructional design process. Although there are many models already on the landscape, so to speak, I want to introduce to you yet one more. This is a newly proposed ID model. It would be used for job aids for new software. And so the reason I say it's proposed model because it combines parts, as you recognize here, from the ADDIE model. It also combines quite a bit from the Agile model, and it does begin with the end in mind, although the graphic may not clearly depict that. There is a continuous feedback loop from the initiating of the plan. The key difference here is you're analyzing the learners, the resources, the organization, and the stakeholders before you're designing any part of the learning intervention. We would then conduct a demo. After the demo, we would obtain feedback externally and internally. We would update our learning intervention plan with the feedback obtained. Then we would conduct a test, a pilot test to get information, to get data on how well that training, if delivered, would be effective, would be efficient. Is it the right learning modality? Have we covered all the objectives that we need to cover in order to change behavior? Or in this case, it's to deploy a new software training package. And this is an enterprise-wide training that will cover over 9,000 individuals in the organization. And so in the software is coming from the Department of Defense to a civilian agency, and the software that's coming and its aids are all geared toward the Department of Defense and its weaponry and so forth. So the goal will be then to analyze the learners that will be receiving this training, and to begin using the DoD project, the DoD job aid for the project, and then to be able to modify and demo and get feedback and have a continuous feedback loop. And basically the language that's currently used in the new organization is very different than the software that's being deployed. So part of that will be a requirement to have that crosswalk. And so the proposed model, with its bi-directional feedback, the arrows are intentionally bi-directional throughout the entire phase to ensure that there's an opportunity for feedback and for us to be able to incorporate that feedback prior to going live with the training. The comparison of the models we have here are it's the ADDIE, the backward design, the agile model, and the proposed model. Each model stands on its own merit with its characteristics that are strengths and some that might be, I don't like to use the word weakness today, but some models may be more appealing to others. As you can see, the newly proposed model offers us iterative movement across the phases of the instructional design. The learner population is known. The course design is open because we're not sure how we're going to develop that yet. The resource development is tailored. It's going to be done in approaches, and we're open. The system has an open system feedback loop, so that feedback from the stakeholder community, externally, internally, and from the learner community can be evaluated and incorporated into this learning intervention. The references that we used in today's presentation are shown on the screen. If you have any questions, please be sure to reach out to me on Canvas. Thank you.